You should never hold angles close to what you're peeking off of. This is because if you do, you expose your entire half of your body before you're even able to see them, and they're easily able to see you. Instead, you want to back up from whatever you're swinging off of. That way, they can't actually see that entire half of you whenever you swing, and you look smaller, therefore faster, and you give them less of a reaction time to shoot you, which can make or break if you win a gunfight. If you're going to back up from your target though, make sure that you aren't exposing yourself to multiple angles. If you expose yourself to multiple angles, whether you know if an enemy is there or not, you make it easier for enemies to shoot you at the same exact time, effectively putting you in a 1v2, or a 1v3, 1v4, or even a 1v5. This is very bad, because taking multiple gunfights at one time is nearly impossible, and it will get you shot in the back when you're focused on one enemy, because you expose yourself to another enemy. The way you can fix this is just by being aware of all of the possible attacker or defender angles that they can use to shoot you, and then consciously only exposing yourself to one angle at a time. You can do this by using cover, using shields, using walls, or just by proper positioning in general. The only angle you want to be exposed to is the angle your crosshair is on that you're contesting. But even crosshair placement is something that most people struggle with. When it comes to crosshair placement, you specifically never want to hold an angle from the same side the enemy is swinging from. For example, if someone is swinging from the left, then you never want to be on the left side of what you're peeking off of. This rule also applies for the right. This is because if you do, the enemy will see a large portion of your shoulder, just like this, before you're able to see any of them. And because they're swinging and not you, because of server ping and server issues, they have even more of a reaction time advantage on you. Instead, hold the opposite side of whichever direction they're swinging. For example, if they swing from the left, you want to be on the right of whatever you're swinging. If they're swinging from the right, you want to be on the left. Not only does it not expose your body as much, but it also allows you to dictate how tight of an angle that you want to hold and how much of your body you want to expose at one time. Because you can pick how tight of an angle you want to hold for your gunfight, disengaging from a gunfight is much easier and safer. But when do you actually disengage and stop aggressively peeking? Well, most people know the term swing or be swung, but that isn't true a lot of the time. You only want to swing and be aggressive when you do swing if you are down in man count and they have more people on their team alive than you do on yours. The reason for this is because if you are down in man count, whether you're on defense or attack, doesn't matter, the enemies can easily put you in a 2v1, 3v1, or 4v1 in some cases scenario. And with our other tip, we already talked about how bad that was. If at any point, though, your team is the one with more players than the enemy team, and you have man advantage, then you want to be the one who's playing passively. On defense, this means holding less aggressive angles or even off angles. This means getting on cams, gathering information, and overall being less aggressive with your swinging. On attack, this looks like slowing down the rush, slowing down the push, starting to use drones, gathering information, using utility, right, and so forth. That way you don't throw away lives and throw away the round because of that. Another way you can easily throw the round, though, is by driving your drone straight into sight. Information in a utility-heavy game like Rainbow Six Siege is vital to winning gunfights, winning rounds, and subsequently winning your games. Throwing away information is essentially throwing away the potential for a well-informed kill, side execute, or round win. Because of this, you never want to be getting on your drone at the start of prep phase and immediately sending your drone straight into the site where it will be killed. Even I'm still guilty of this, and I know that pro players and other content creators are as well, so I know that you probably are too. There are certain exceptions to this rule though. Iana is one of those few exceptions because her ability gives her seemingly infinite information throughout the round, so aggressively droning or setting up really high-risk cameras to get information you wouldn't otherwise be able to get without sacrificing her drones isn't actually a bad strategy. The same goes for other operators like Dokkaebi and Jackal for the exact same reasons. They have information abilities, but that's really about it. An even worse droning habit though is not droning at all in the prep phase, or otherwise known as drewing the TikTok phase. Bro, if you're not gonna play the game, then go scroll TikTok off the game and don't queue ranked. Why should my elo suffer for your dopamine addiction? Why? Anyways, this is generally just bad because obviously you're not gathering information you could be using, which we talked about earlier being bad. If you're saving your drone for the roam clear or a rush, then that's one thing. Keep it in spawn. But most people can't have a little downtime in their lives or a little self-control without short-form content to fill in between the lack of fun moments. So they just don't drone in the prep phase, which is not only bad, but it's honestly just kind of depressing. It's hard not to be depressed though when you have a bad mindset. Having a good mindset is crucial to winning more games in Rainbow Six Siege. It may sound a bit corny, but someone who gets tilted after losing 2 rounds and runs Amaru into sight afterward has a way lower chance of success winning the round and the game than the person who plays the game to their fullest effort no matter the outcome of previous rounds, because the past rounds truly don't matter. Everyone watching this video has come back from an 0-3 situation at some point, I'm assuming, so why should this game in specific be any different? The answer is that it wouldn't, and the only thing stopping you from making that comeback is a bad mindset and the lack of a belief in yourself. Even if your teammates are bad, if you're good enough, it shouldn't matter if your teammates are bad. Even if someone like Spoit or Bolo has bad teammates, do you think that would stop them from winning a game and ranking up and hitting champ every season? No, because they're just that good that they can solo carry. If you're not that good that you can solo queue and solo carry, then you yourself have things that you can work on. So instead of focusing on your teammates that you can't control, you should blame yourself and improve on the things that you can improve on to become the best version of a player that you could be. You should never really blame your teammates. So getting tilted is only about finding an easy excuse to not be a winner and improve. It's hard to win games though if you don't warm up properly. I used to be hard stuck gold for a good part of my Siege career, as many other people have also done. One of the biggest changes I made personally to make it a champ consistently was getting and creating my own tailor-made warm-up routine. It doesn't have to be anything crazy either. It can be as fast as a 10 to 15 minutes of your time warm-up routine. If you break down every portion of mechanics in general in the game, or just mechanics that you think you need to warm up, with different practices you can easily warm up effectively and quickly. These mechanics include, but are not limited to, recoil control, tracking, flicking, crosshair placement, quick peeking, and movement, just to name the most obvious ones. What I do on stream is I go into the shooting range and practice recoil control, tracking, and flicking. Then, once I feel like that's warmed up enough to where I'm comfortable, I go into map tutorials, and I work on my first shot accuracy with DMRs, as well as trying to maintain aiming head level consistently throughout the entire round. Then, once I feel warmed up enough on that, which usually only takes a few minutes, I then go into an arcade and practice quick peeking and movement and how to shoot players that actually shoot back and move back. This typically will warm up your game sense mechanically speaking as well, so you don't really need to play unranked or casual to warm up either. So that can be the end of it, and you can queue ranked after this. It's that simple, fast, and easy, I promise you. Something else that you can change fast and easy is your settings. Having the wrong settings puts you in a huge disadvantage no matter the amount of warming up we'll get through. So let's go over it. One thing that matters in the general settings is the drone after prep. You want to have this on manual. The reason you have this on manual is because if you don't, let's say you're running away from somebody in the prep phase and the prep phase ends, then you're going to get off your drone immediately and it's going to die. But if you had it on manual, you wouldn't get off the drone on the prep phase and you'd be able to drive it out and escape it. Having it on manual can save or kill your drone, so just having it on manual is always a safe bet. Not only this, but if you have it on manual, you can throw your drone out and wait for somebody to swing you because they think you're droning, and then you can easily get a free kill just by baiting your drone. So it's something I definitely recommend that you have on. In terms of your audio, you want to have it on night mode. The reason you want to have it on night mode is because putting it on TV mode is just bad unless you're on a TV, and putting it on hi-fi makes sounds like explosions and gunfire louder, while it makes footsteps quieter. I don't know about you, but I'd much prefer to be able to hear someone flanking me than care about the quality of the explosions and gunshots that are blaring in my ears. So night mode is just always going to be better. In terms of your display, you want your refresh rate maxed out as well as your resolution. You want your aspect ratio to be either on 4:3 or 16:10. You want VSync to be off, FPS limit to be off, and you want your 87 tailor-made to your aspect ratio. Having your HUD minimized is something that may look weird at first, but I definitely recommend you do it so it doesn't cover up things that are important. And then having your brightness anything above 60 is definitely a mistake. Having all of your graphics on low except for shadow quality and zoom in depth of field is also important because you'll get a lot more frames this way and graphics don't necessarily matter. Your sensitivity is something that we'll go over later, but pretty much everything else is personal preference. The only thing that isn't though is your screen shake intensity. You definitely want that off, there's no reason to have it on, and you don't want anything crosshair color related that is going to be drowned out by your surroundings that you look at. But like I said, again, everything else is personal preference. Something that shouldn't be personal preference though is the operator bans. There are certain operator bans that you flat out should not be doing. Obviously, there's the obvious operators that you don't want to ban purely because they're just bad operators, and banning these operators just would be a waste of a ban. Operators like Sens, Thunderbird, Tachanka, or Amaru, just to name a few and give you examples. More importantly, though, you don't want to be banning operators that you can easily counter. For example, why would you ever ban Cade if Thatcher's on the table? Thatcher can easily ban Cade. It doesn't make sense to ban him. Never ban Turborao if Maverick's on the table and not banned, because Maverick directly counters him and can easily negate his ability. That might be not as good of an example because Turborao can do also other things, but you get the general idea I'm trying to get at here. Another rule of thumb when it comes to banning operators in general is you never want to ban operators your team is going to use that you know you need in order to win the game. Only ban operators that you know you can win without, that you think the enemy is going to rely on. For example, if you know that you can reliably defend Rafters on Clubhouse without a zombie, then just ban her, so the enemies don't get her. If you can't though and you need her, then don't ban her, or else you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. Something else that puts you at a huge disadvantage is copying or changing your sensitivity. You should never copy someone's sensitivity like a streamer or a pro player because you want your aim to look like theirs. The sad reality is that their aim looks so good not because it's just some crazy sense that they discovered, but because they have thousands of hours of practice and experience on that sensitivity that they use. Finding a sensitivity that you aim best with and that you drill on is the best case scenario. If you do this and you actually drill your sensitivity and try to consciously get better at using it until you don't make mistakes, you will become an aim god just like them. You just have to be willing to put the hours in. Obviously, that will take a long time, and it's much easier said than done, but it is possible, and definitely something that you should consider doing. Something else that's easier said than done, though, is aiming head level consistently. This may seem like a loading screen menu tip that everyone knows, but even people like me, Bolo, Spoit, Shock, Canadian, or any of those other good players that you look up to don't do 100% of the time. It's something that no one will always be perfect at, and therefore it's something that everyone, no matter how good you are, can always improve on. Like I said earlier in the video, it's as easy as making a part of your warm-up routine through map training. An easier way of doing this though is first learning exactly where head level is, and then keeping your crosshair there. For example, I brought you back onto Clubhouse. Now look at this barricade right here. If you notice, there are buckles right here for the barricade to sit on that the doorway flush with. These buckles are exactly where head level is all the time. So if you know, for example, that you're going to be holding an angle onto main stairs, maybe because you're playing a Mira right here or something, then barricade this door in the prep phase, and then immediately take the barricade down after. Then you always have these buckles that your brain can use for reference to know where head level is. So whenever you're on this mirror right here holding these head holes, you'll always know where head level is consistently. This can help you in a lot of your games, and if you're not too good at knowing where it is, maybe you aim too high, maybe you aim too low, then this will get you a lot of kills. Not only do you use barricades for aiming head level, but you also need to be using them for information. I bet you as a player don't even think about utilizing barricades as much as you should. The way that you do this is by going to a window with glass on it in the prep phase and shooting 5 bullets somewhere into the barricade. Now I say 5 bullets because typically it takes 5 bullets with any gun, but for the revolver it's just a high caliber gun so it only took 3. But in most scenarios it's going to just be 5. Make sure that your 5 bullets are in different places of the window on the barricade though, so you don't accidentally break a hole into it like I did here. What this does is it breaks the glass on the other side of the barricade, while also maintaining the integrity of the actual wooden barricade, allowing you to hear any attackers on the other side much easier when they're repelled, and they won't be able to see you because it's still barricaded fully. If you do end up making the mistake of, putting a hole in the barricade, you can easily just re-barricade it like this though. You can easily not only know if they're on the rappel in general of a window, but you can also know where on the rappel they actually are. You can know if they're up top, upside down repelled. You can know if they're on the left or the right. Vice versa, it doesn't really matter. You don't, however, want to be doing this on windows that they can vault through, especially if it's a window that you know you're not going to be spawn picking or running out through. Because the glass on the window being there will actually make it to where if they hop in the window, they'll break the glass. And that's a much louder sound than them just breaking and hopping into the barricade. So keeping the glass there can actually give you a sound cue as opposed to taking it away like it was on the other window example. With that in mind, you really have to learn when not to break the glass on a barricade. You also need to learn when and when not to red ping. Red pinging is great because it gives accurate information to your teammates as to where an enemy is. Not only this, but red pings also make a pinging noise that's very audible for your teammates so that they know even more information and are more aware of where and when you're pinging people. So why wouldn't you always just red ping? Well, the reason you wouldn't always do this is because not only does red pinging alert your teammates, but it also alerts your enemies that you're doing it. If you do this, now they know that they're being red pinged, and they're going to look for your camera and shoot it. This will take away all of the information that you could have kept had you just yellow pinged the enemy instead. Not only this, but players will play differently, more cautiously, and hold different angles if they know for a fact that they're being watched, which can be bad for your teammates. The only time you want to red ping is if your teammate won't know where they are if you don't, or if you know that the camera won't get shot for a number of different reasons. Red pinging also doesn't make them waste their time as much, and it will make them more aggressive. Something else that wastes time is reinforcing next to your teammates. If you reinforce next to your teammate, it wastes a few seconds in the prep phase because it forces that teammate to go somewhere else to reinforce once they're done reinforcing what you did next to them, when you could have just reinforced that instead. This makes them have to travel more and wastes time because of travel time, which is very important in the prep phase because the prep phase already gives you very little time to construct an entire strategy and set up a site in the first place. So time is very important. Instead, pick a wall that isn't being reinforced but needs to be reinforced to minimize the travel time and time wasted in the prep phase. Those extra few seconds that you didn't waste could be used to get on an angle to spawn peek in the prep phase. But if you spawn peek wrong, you'll die and lose your teammates the round. Spawn peeking isn't necessarily a scummy or bad thing to do, because if your enemies were good enough, they wouldn't get spawn peeked in the first place and they'd just kill you. The issue lies in if you spawn peek incorrectly. You can spawn peek incorrectly by having the entire window or door open that you're spawn peeking from. Tell me what's more obvious of a spawn peek, number 1 or number 2? Obviously number 2, right? If you utilize bullet holes in glass like this, you can easily hide your spawn peeks instead of breaking the barricade like you're doing a late round run out. Bullet holes in general are very powerful like this. So powerful in fact that they removed them from the game entirely when it came to other surfaces other than glass. Holes that they didn't remove from the game though are punch holes. These holes are very obvious, and if you use them wrong then you can get yourself killed. This punch hole is very obvious, and anyone that sees it immediately will just aim and flick to it and kill you. But these are much less obvious as to where you're peeking from. If you have 10 times the punch holes, they have 10 times less of a chance of picking the actual punch hole that you're peeking off of and seeing them with, which are odds that can get you a kill and flip the game into your favor and win you the game. But do you know what else can turn games into your favor? Watching this next video. My name's Alka, and I'll see you there. Later.